Good morning, YouTube. What I got here is a top I'm gluing up because when I was doing this wall behind me, I'll explain that in a later video, I found some boards that were pretty beautiful, and I did not want to put them on my wall. So skip planing them. I got them cleaned up on both sides and I just kind of set them off in the rack. Well, these ones I cut just about 1 5/8 inches big and glued them all together. So these are going to be the top for this table that I'm going to build. This table actually I got a request to build this table. One of my daughter's friends wants it as an end table for their sofa. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to replicate this cheap table that they're wanting $199 for a better price out of some pallet wood. So I'm going to take this apart and set it off to the side because I want brand new blades when I run this through, and there's still some life in my old blades. So I'm going to try to run what we're going to use the side panels for the side panels through with the life that's left in those blades. So let's make it happen. So I'm not sure what these boards are left over from, but we're going to go ahead and skip plane these, and I have enough of them to make both sides of this nightstand or end table, so to say. So I found the thickest one, and we're going to go ahead and get started skip planing these. Most of these boards are already pretty smooth, so running them through the planer didn't really take that long. Some of them, however, did have some pretty rough sides on them. So I went ahead and I ran at least one side through the joint. Some of them I ran both sides through, but we're going to be taking them to the table saw to clean up all that stuff here in a little bit anyways. Once I get to the table saw, I'm going to be moving this fence around here quite a bit because I want to keep as much width on these boards as possible. I already checked and I have just a little bit over enough to be able to complete these 20-inch sides. So I don't want to take too much of these off right here at the table saw. So making them all one side is not going to work. Working with pallet wood, you see stuff like this. With every single cut and every single pass, I try to cut out any kind of blemish that would say that this is pallet wood. Any kinds of knots, any kinds of nail holes. I want to make sure I have all the nail holes and knots directed in a way that is visually pleasing to the project. And the same thing applies for the sides when you're doing the glue up. You want to make sure that you have an inside that is not going to be seen as much, and then you have an outside that looks as good as pallet wood can possibly look. Might seem a little early for sanding, but I've found that when doing panel glue ups, if you sand right after you get done squishing it all together, it looks pretty good. So I got my wood ran for the drawers, this stack and that stack. Now we need to make a face frame. And a couple of months ago, I ran these stringers through when I built my planer stand. So we're going to go ahead and cut these to length, and we're going to pocket hole them together. So let's go to the miter saw. What I'm pointing at here is some stuff that I would like to cut out and I don't want seen. So I'm going to go ahead and square up this edge, and then we'll put it up against the stop block and we'll cut it to the desired length. Now my length is different than yours probably, but in this case it's like 25 inches. So after making the first initial cut, it was a little long, so I readjust my stop block, make another cut, and check it again. Once that one's good, we can go ahead and cut the second one. Then I will move the stop block so that I can cut the cross braces that are going in between here. Makes it all nice and square. So we're going to use just a little bit of glue to seal the deal here. Maybe. Make sure when doing this, you have your boards oriented in the correct position. It is very easy to put them the wrong direction. You want to make sure your fronts are facing down and your backs are facing up. Clamp it down. That way everything stays nice and flush. Now I know you probably don't care, but I did not change the blades out and I'm running this top through. There was a lot more life left in these blades than I had anticipated. And I was able to get the tops and the sides and everything else ran through on this same particular set of blades. So it saved me a little bit of money and a little bit of time. So after switching them all around to find out what pattern I like, I gotta lay them out for the joiner. A, B, A, B, A, B. That way I know which sides to run through the joiner facing the face and which side to run through facing out. Now if you're not sure about this method, take like the A side, put it against the face of the joiner. Take the B side and put it away from the face. That way, just in case your joiner is just a hair off, you'll have a perfect seam right in the middle. So, the joiner's next up. Let's go there. I'm a hobbyist woodworker, like a lot of y'all. And this is like our second or third trip to the joiner in this video. So, I want to say this. The 3 tools that you should buy that are expensive are a joiner, a table saw, and a miter saw. The reason I say this is because those 3 tools, when they are high quality, make exceptional cuts. And those exceptional cuts will make your lack thereof woodworking skills look just that much better. So spend your money on those 3 tools. Because tools like this that you don't use very often, a biscuit joiner, obviously. This one comes from Harbor Freight. I think I paid like 40 bucks for it. It does not make exceptional cuts. It does not provide a whole lot of strength. And I do not use it very often. So I spent all my money on those other 3 tools. That way, they make good cuts, so I don't really need this one all of the time. So with the plastic back on the table, we can go ahead and start gluing these up. And I have enough table, and I have enough clamps. I can do all 3 at one time. I did not, however, put biscuits in the 2 side panels. I only put them in the top panel, which is what I'm working on now. I think the 2 side panels will be just fine. I probably really didn't even need to use the biscuits because with the joiner and the table saw and everything, I got a really nice seam. So the biscuits are just a little extra added insurance. So I don't have a whole lot of time in the shop today. So I know I want to get these out of clamps and I want to get those in clamps. That way I can get the drawer sides all glued up. I can get as many glued up today as I can, and then what's left I'll get in clamps tomorrow. That way by the time I get to my weekend, everything's all nice and cleaned up and we can get started on assembling this thing. So we'll get these out. Look at that top so far. That thing's coming out great. So with my table all full, I still have a little bit of time before I have to go to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this top of my miter station to do a little bit of sanding. Now I don't want to scratch my top because I worked so hard on it. And the towel will help keep it from moving around. Throw some 80 grit on here. And because I was so thoughtful when I put all this together, I have a plug available right here. And my scraper's not there. Should have been right there. We'll pop these little nuggets off here before we start sanding. Ain't got none on the top because we wiped them off already. I don't have a card scraper, so that's what I got. And we start sanding. After getting everything sanded up, we can go ahead and take it to the table saw and we'll cut it to the length and width. Now, you could do this with a track saw. You don't need a big expensive table saw. But the big expensive table saw does make this process quite nice. After I get done with the top, we'll go ahead and do the two sides and get them all cross cut and cut the width as well. Cutting both panels to length and width at the same time on the same setting pretty much ensures squareness. Now, to attach these to the face frame, these biscuits aren't going to provide any strength. But what they are going to do is they're going to help me with alignment, considering I'm not real sure how to clamp these up. So I'm going to use the biscuits and some pocket hole screws. See? Pocket hole screws. I just put 4 pocket hole screws on each one of the front side of this panel. On the back side of this panel, I am going to cut a dado slot for a piece of 1/4-inch plywood that I have left over from my miter station build. I had just enough plywood left over to cover the back panel and the 3 drawers that are going into this nightstand end table. The part that worried me the most about clamping this together was that dadoed edge on the back. If I apply too much clamping pressure to that dadoed edge on that pine board, I might split that right down the center and break that dado off. And I didn't want to do that. So that's why I decided to use pocket holes as clamps. I also wanted to make sure that these sides stay flush with the sides of this face frame. It's kind of a design that you see on the big lots. It's all flush all around the sides, even though there are many more seams than seems to be needed. I don't know if this is considered a frameless kind of build, but I'm just going to run some stretchers, I think would be the correct word for this, between the two side panels. I'm going to put 3 of them at the top and 3 of them down in behind that bottom stringer. Alright, we got all the bracing in. Let's stand it up. Yeah. Hello there. It's starting to look like a stand. Alright, let's give it a little sand in here and we'll get the top on there. I went ahead and sanded this all the way up to 220 grit because it's going to be much harder to sand once the top is on there. So the Big Lots version, it had like a seamless look. Everything come together, even though it showed seams, it was seamless. Now, I knew that even with all of this work that I put in it, I was not going to be able to get a seamless look between the top and the bottom. So I used a 1/4 inch round over on the top and a 1/4 inch round over on the base, and that gives me a bit of a shadow line. And because I did it on the top, I felt like I needed to do it all the way around. So I did it all the way around the face frame, and it gave it a nice finished look. I really wanted to do it on the inside too, but the Big Lots version showed some pretty sharp corners, so I tried to stay with that sharp cornered look. I just kind of broke the edges a little bit with some 220 grit sandpaper. After I got my shadow line in there, I went ahead and I did put a 1/2 inch round over on the top. And once I had the top where I wanted it, I clamped it in place with 4 clamps. And I set it up on my table. Now this thing, like a married man, is starting to gain some weight. So it was a little awkward and a little heavy to get up there. Once I did get it up there, I used 6 of those black pan head screws that I use for everything. I think they were 1.5 or 1.25. I think they were 1.5. And I just screwed through my 3 top supports, and that should hold it in place pretty good. Alright, so we got our stack of panels glued up here. Pallet wood panels. And the opening we have is 16.5. Well, those are big drawers. The customer sent me a picture of a nightstand from Odd Lots, Big Lots, and it had 2 drawers in it. I think 2 8.25 inch drawers is too big, and it'll just become a clustered mess. So I reached out to her and we decided on 3 drawers instead of just 2. So we're going to cut these big panels that I made to do the 2 drawers down to 5.5 inches instead of 8.25 inches. I think that'll serve more purpose beside a sofa than 2 big drawers. Alright, let's take these to the table saw and we'll come down to 5.5 inches. Alright, so it's time for a little bit of honesty here. These panels are a little over 10 inches in width. I said I needed 5.5. Well, as you can see here, there's quite a bit left. And this will really screw me up later on because these are not 5.5 inch panels anymore. These are now 4.5-inch panels. So if there's one thing that I need to work on, it's building drawer boxes. I really don't know what to say about building drawer boxes. I'm not great at it, but I pull it off and they usually work. This is a different design. I put a groove in here. This is the first time I've ever tried this. And I cut some leftover pallet stringers, as you can see here, and I rounded them over. Now this is actually working pretty well. Once I get some wax on there, they'll be working a lot better. But for the most part, they're a little sticky. I might have to sand it some more. Now, you may think working client work, not the best time to try something new. I agree and disagree, because trying something new may take some more time, but you can't give up on it if it's client work, because you have to get the product done and it has to be right. So trying something new on client work makes you perform the task correctly and do everything you can to get it right. So with these drawer boxes in here, let's go ahead and get some drawer faces on there. And I had to go to Lowe's to buy a piece of wood to do that, because I don't have any pallet wood that's 5.5 inches wide. So I got that over there. I'll bring it over to the miter saw and we'll get them cut up. I just want you to take a minute and admire this. That is an 8 feet long piece of pine. And look how perfect that thing sits on my miter station. Let's go down here to the end and look. Looky. Look at that. That's awesome. 8 feet. Okay, back to work. So as I had stated before, these drawers are 4.5 inches and they still need a 5.5 inch drawer face. Well, I didn't feel like gluing up more boards and waiting more time, because I'm already into this for quite a bit of time for not as much money as it should be. So I went down to Lowe's, and for 13 bucks I got an 8-foot board that was 6 inches wide and 1/4 inch thick. And in all honesty, turned out better because it's a solid board on a drawer front. Make sure you are reading your labels when buying wood, because that says 1x6x8, but if you look at that smaller print, that is 3/4 by 5.5 by 8, which actually works out pretty well. Now it saves me a cut, I guess, but that could have been devastating if I actually needed the whole 6 inches. So once everything's cut to size, I went ahead and ran an 1/8 inch round over all the way around the drawer fronts, just to kind of break it up a little bit. And then I put in the 1/4 inch and I ran that all the way around my drawers. It just kind of gives the drawers a little finished look and smooths it out, makes it nice to the touch, you know, yada yada yada. So the way I like to attach my drawer fronts to my drawers is to drill the holes first. Now I'm using a storage stick on these so I can get them placed right in the same place. And I'm just kind of holding the jig in place with my hands, because clamping it down is a pain in the ass. And I'm using a backer board, that way I get a nice clean hole when I drill all the way through it. Once I get my holes drilled, I can use a couple of screws that are self-tapping and run them right through those hardware holes, and it'll hold it to the drawer while I put some screws on the back. So I'm sure everybody has seen this little trick. Use playing cards on the bottoms and the sides so that your gaps are all the same. What you do is you take some playing cards, you find out how many it takes to fill the gap, you split them in half, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. Your seams are good. Then I run 4 screws, 1 in each corner, and that holds my drawer face in place. If something were to ever happen to the drawer face, I could take those out and put a new drawer face on. So when you're doing these, use longer screws when you put that face on there, because it will leave a little bit right here and a little bit right here. The reason you want to do that is because we have to countersink, and we need to know where to start the bit. There's a piece of tape on there so I don't go too deep. So I looked up the description of this end table that I was sent, and it said that it is engineered oak with a golden finish. So the closest thing I have to that is some golden oak stain from Minwax. Well, I could not bring myself to put that on this beautiful top. So I went ahead and I used the Armor Seal satin. The oil-based satin finish. Here's a picture of it for you. Now, I'm not sure if the client was going to like this, and if they did not, I was fine with it. I would keep it. This freaking turned out awesome. That wood is beautiful on the top. So, once it was beautiful on the top, I started running it around the face and around the sides, and the whole end table ends up turning out fantastic. Now, one way or another, whether it was stained or not, that oil-based Armor Seal was going on there anyways, because that protects the top like nobody's business. I used that stuff on my bathroom vanity and on my miter saw station. It's great for keeping water off. Now, I had already sanded this top to 220 before putting the first coat of Armor Seal on it. I'm going to sand it to 220 again and put another coat on it. And then the final sanding will be done with some red Scotch-Brite. And then I will put the last layer of Armor Seal on it. And that gives it a nice, smooth, protected top. 3 layers of that Armor Seal is like bulletproof. It's good stuff. I'm not affiliated with General Finishes for anything. As a matter of fact, I'm not affiliated with anybody. Hell, nobody gives me any money. But this Armor Seal, like I said earlier, I used it on my bathroom vanity, and that was like 3 years ago. And with the toothpaste and the water and the kids, once you wipe it off, it looks phenomenal still, even after 3 years of use in a bathroom. So yeah, if you want something to protect your furniture, give that stuff a try. I promise you won't be disappointed with it. So after I sand it, I give it a little wipe down before I put the last coat of finish on it. I also want to put these leveling feet on it before I get the last coat put on so it can dry. Now, to make these leveling feet, I used a 1-inch piece of pallet stringer, and I put 1/4 20 inserts in it. I used CA glue to hold the 1/4 20 inserts in, clamped them in place with some glue, and hit them with some 1.5-inch screws. Right into the side. It should hold pretty well. Then, I went ahead and decided it's a good time to wax these drawers. I'm using Minwax finishing paste wax to perform this. If all you've ever used is the Johnson's paste wax, well, must have been nice for that short period of time because they don't sell that no more. But the Minwax is all I have ever used, and I have never had any problems with it. It seems to work just fine. Everything slides pretty good with that Minwax on there. Check this out. Find the hole. There you go. That's slick right there, boys. Well, that's gonna wrap up this build for today. You can see I'm sitting on it. It's not wobbling, even on my crappy floor. But one thing I know about this lady is she has 3 sons, and me being one of 3 sons, I've been told we're hell-bent on tearing up tanks. So I wanted this to be solid enough, because with Thanksgiving coming up, I know there's not going to be many places to sit, and this may very well become a seat. So we are good to go on the whole sitting situation. Mama may say, get your ass off my table, but, you know, that's her deal to deal with. But they can sit on it, just to let you know. So, these drawer runners, we got these fixed up. They are smooth as butter. That one was pretty sticky there earlier. Look at that thing bounces right out now. Bottom one, nice and smooth as well. Top looks great. Last thing we're going to do is I have a packet with some business cards and a personal note that we're going to put in here. The note just says, you know, thank you for choosing Mean McCall Woodshop for your purchase. Hope you consider Mean McCall for all your future furniture builds. And here's a couple of business cards for your family and friends when they ask where you got this beautiful stand. And we're going to put this pretty feather in there from our Mean McCall. Just a little personal touch. Kind of gives a customer a warm fuzzy feeling inside. Alright, I'm out of here for today. Come back next week. We'll be working on something else. Alright, see y'all later. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.